Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Well, over the past few days, I have had the pleasure of watching the latest series of Waterloo Road. Much like the previous series, I decided I would like to discuss my thoughts. There will be spoilers in this video, so if you haven't watched it yet, then please turn away. Okay, so I figured I would tackle this by discussing the story arcs and characters one at a time. There was a lot of interesting things going on, so this feels like the best way to do it. I think I should start with the excellent head teacher Stella Drake. So as we know, she went viral for calling parents out for not supporting the school system and their kids enough. At face value, I do believe Stella's argument that a school is meant to serve as an educational centre, and they need to prioritise the academics, especially as many students would exploit mental health schemes, like in the aftermath of the murder from the previous series. I found the personal journey Stella went on to be very intriguing. As horrible as it was seeing an old lady get assaulted, I did get the poignant point across, and it was a good excuse to reintroduce Jack into the series. I think Stella is the most interesting head teacher the show has had since the very early days and is clearly very different to most. She's tough as nails and is clearly very guarded. I think the small snippets of her personal life open the doors to some real potential storytelling down the line. Although brash and sometimes too harsh, I think her belief system is right and she is the kind of force the school needs to succeed at the moment. I think her dynamic with Jack is great and I look forward to seeing more of it soon. Unlike Steve's story last term, I would argue Stella's is much more character driven and that this whole series just feels like a piece of a much larger puzzle. Well, this series reintroduced Celine from the previous run. She arrives at Waterloo Road with her son Ashton. He and Dante begin to bond. Look, I'm not often a fan of a long lost child plot point, but the seeds were set with this one. Even if the original intent was for it to be a throwaway line, I think the chemistry the actors share is amazing and the casting was quite excellent. I think he looks an awful lot like Adam Thomas. I think the setup in the opening episode was very good. It essentially mirrors the opening episode back in Series 1. The car being the main plot device to their dynamic was good. Dante referring to the event seemed to solidify their bond. In terms of Ashton himself, I figured he was going to be the next bad kid, a trope the show is known for, but he's really not. He's never really connected with his stepdad and just lashes out. It seems like Dante is what he needs. I think the most interesting thing going forward will be his dynamic with Izzy, something we only got a snippet of this go around. So they sort of redeemed Shuey? Or at least they're trying to? Alright, so based on last series, I truly thought Shuey was too far gone at this point. His bullying of Billy seemed to push him into that territory. I do think the actual interaction between him and Billy turned the tides. Billy finally ends it and reiterates that Shuey is very soft, especially compared to the other kids inside. I do think him converting to Christianity and seeing the light was an interesting spin on the redemption arc. At first, I figured it would be something like, he's interested in Agnes but isn't actually able to become better. He just wanted her and she would see through it, but that really wasn't the case. I actually think the two of them are quite good together, and I'm actually rooting for Shuey now. Maybe he will be the Finn Sharkey of this era. Who knows? I think with Agnes and Mr. Casey supporting him, he has a real chance though. Coral and Neil have a baby. I didn't expect this. I really thought the plot was going to be menopause. I mean, it's a fun dynamic and seemed like a good way to sew their whole family together as a unit. Right, speaking of the Guthrie family, the other major conflict this series was the toxic and abusive relationship between Jared and Libby. I called this plot very early on in the first episode. They did such a good job of ramping up the plot and highlighting how horrible Jared is. I think this was quite a difficult plot to do right, and respectfully, but I will hand it to the writers, I do think they delivered. The amount of satisfaction I felt when the students defended Libby was amazing. Noel literally stopping him from entering the school was great. It was a good use of social media to highlight how Jared really was in their relationship. Now, much like the past few series I think the episode count restricted things and it suffered. I think there needed to be an episode in between 7 and 8 where Libby and Jared were apart. I mean, the police could interview him and it could be the same point where there just wasn't enough evidence. I think they also could have had an episode where Izzy and Ashton were at odds after he moved in, but again, this may happen down the line. I also felt like the pregnancy story was rushed. In no time at all, she went into labour and gave birth. I also found the plot where Dante slept with Nisha and her daughter wasn't needed. He had enough plot going on with Ashton. I also wish we had a few more scenes between Stella and Jack, maybe some more plot details about what he's been up to, but besides that, it was very good. As I mentioned earlier on, this series doesn't feel complete. It felt like a whole lot of setups for more story. It's like this whole reboot feels like a much tighter serialized story overall. Series 11 through 13 felt like one massive series, while 14 feels like a bridge between plots, a bit of a breather. While this feels like part 1 of an entirely new story, all contained within a larger serial, unlike 14 where everything felt definitive, this is so open-ended that it feels like a gateway. It was a very optimistic end, which after a murder cover-up plot is probably needed. On the whole, I loved this new series. I really think Stella Drake is an excellent head, and I'm looking forward to more. Well, that's just what I thought anyway. I would love to hear what you all think in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed what you saw, then could you please hit that like button and subscribe? It will help my channel continue to grow. I will see you all next term.